Can you take us back? What do you remember about your audition for Dr. Chuck?
Well, it was really funny because I was doing heavies all the time, and then they called me, and it's the first time because I've never watched a soap. And they called me, my agent called me, and they said, "We want you to audition for All My Children, for part in All My Children." And they were out in California. And so I auditioned for it. Then they came up to me and they said, "Well, you didn't get the part, but we're we have something coming up in September that you may do." And I said, "Oh, okay, fine." And so September came up. I guess it was in September. I'm not sure. But it came up, and I flew me to New York for the audition. Well, the man who was the director, who was doing it,
Henry Kaplan?
Yes. Good old Henry hated California actors. He didn't know I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, I guess, or that I did off Broadway. But he hated actors. And so the first thing I did with them was he lost his wife and was mourning after her. But he had a scene with this girl who was not on the show, but was an extra, and they were auditioning for her. And I spent the first scene trying to keep her not covering her because she wasn't aware of the cameras. And so I kept, and after we finished the scene, I said, "Well, that didn't work out very well." Then the next scene I had to do, which was very emotional. And I was doing it, and then all of a sudden, the person I was playing opposite of, I can't remember his name, but he started laughing. And I just kind of forced him into being embarrassed. And then I did the scene, and I turned around and I left. And I said, "Well, I didn't get that." And so I walked off, and I found out, he told me later, that Henry Kaplan told him to laugh every time I tried to throw me off because he hated actors from Hollywood. And so when I left, I said, "Well, that didn't work out." And the executive producer asked me, he said, "Look, you got the part, but you can't tell anybody." And I said, "Okay, fine." And then I immediately called my agent and told him I got the part. Well, then when I joined the show, he was on, oh God, can't remember what he was on. I think he was a diabetic. And he was, that's the way he's supposed to do. And so I was on the show for a while. I had just brought my family out. And then we were walking to an award ceremony that they, I guess it was a word, it's Soap Bubble magazine was holding this shindig.
Wow.
And after we finished shooting, I walked up to join the celebration or whatever it was. And as I was walking in, the reporters saying, "Hey, Van Vleet, you're doing a good job. Too bad they're killing you off." And then I walked in, and the executive producer was there. And he said, "Are you enjoying yourself?" And I said, "Well, I was until I walked in." And they said that I'm dying on the show. And he said, "Well, yeah, that's why we hired you." I signed a 3-year contract, brought my family out, and then I was dying. And he said, "But we don't know what the hell you did to the role, but you're not dying, but you got to play the part and it'll be a dream." And then I was nominated that first year. Then I signed a new contract, although I had a year and a half to go again. And this time it was a no-cut contract. I insisted on it because they had the option every 26 weeks or every 20 weeks of getting rid of you. and I didn't want to take
Smart man. Smart
yeah.
man.
And then the second time I was nominated, it was you had to join the academy. The second time I joined the academy, and then the third time, of course, I didn't win either 2 times, and both. I think that was the first 2 years that Susan Lucci was nominated, and Susan and I were supposed to be the commentators. And then, of course, they said, no, you can't do that because CBS is doing it. That was the first nomination was the first time it was televised on television.
Oh, wow.
And so the third year, they Emmys, daytime Emmys, changed their requirements. They said you have to nominate yourself. The other times it was the producers and directors who nominated you. And I said, well, I'm not going to nominate myself for an Emmy to be considered for it. And so I dropped out of the Academy.
Gotcha.
There's something about blowing your own horn that is repugnant.
Yeah.
That I find repugnant.
I can understand that. I can understand. One of the fans, Brett, was asking, what do you remember about the remote in Switzerland in the early 80s with Candy Early and James Mitchell?
Oh, God, that was just, we really enjoyed it. But there was turmoil at the time because I went up to the producer because the girl that I was supposed to, Melanie something, Carol Burnett was supposed to play her mother, and she was going to do the show. Well, it would have been written that way, but when it was cast, the woman they cast had a problem. I don't remember her name, her real name, but she belonged to this sect, and the leader of the sect died, and she and several other members stayed with this dead person's body in the apartment for 2 weeks. And I guess she was also institutionalized. And for some reason, I found out later, she was involved with one of the heads of ABC, a woman. And Melanie would not bother to read the scripts. And so we were the last to shoot all of the shows. Everything else was done because it was an hour show. And then I would work from 7:30 in the morning and work with her and we finished shooting about 10, 11 o'clock at night, just for her scenes so that she could do it. And I went up to the assistant executive producer and asked him, could you tell her to encourage her to read the script and go over lines before she comes to work? And he said, why don't you call Agnes, Agnes Nixon? And so I did what he was told, and they put me on the writers, to the writers, and I just followed directions, because I was trying, because I'm not supposed to tell an actor how to work, how to do this scene. And so I told them. And then the lady she was involved with, the executive producer, when we were in Switzerland, approached me and said, I'll make sure I'll fire your ass, But I told them that Melanie came up to me and she said that she was a great skier. And I said, I think you're not going to think she knows how to ski, because she called them boards. she said, I have those 2 boards. And I said, no, those skis. You know, I didn't correct her, but I warned them. And when they got over there, they found out she didn't know how to ski a lick. And I told them, you're going to have to get a double for her. And that's what they did, you know. And, but other than that, I really enjoyed it. I loved working with Candy. And of course she died. And Susan, you know. So.
Was Edge of Night there at the same time? Do you recall?
No, they weren't.
Oh, somebody thought that Edge of Night was on location at the same time that you were in Switzerland.
Well, not as far as I know. They may have been in a different part of Switzerland. I'm not sure. But they were not where we were.
And what about Ruth Warwick?
Oh, God. Ruth was a real gas. It was really funny. I'll tell you a story, which is kind of, she had Charles. I don't remember. I don't know if you remember Charles. That was my grandfather. Moved to New York.
Yeah.
Right. Well, they had a bedroom scene in bed. And so they started it, and Charles crawled into bed and he touched her and he said, oh, all of a sudden his eyes got very wide and he said, God damn it, Ruth, you haven't got any clothes on. It scared the hell out of him, you know. So, but yeah, that's what she had, pulled things like that.
That is wild.
Oh God, what was his name?
James
you just mentioned it. The gray-haired guy,
James Mitchell.
God. Yes, James. I'm doing a scene with. I was involved in a scene with James, and all of a sudden they said, James turned to the camera and he said, I can't do the scenes because he's covering my lines. And he had the lines printed on small pieces of paper all over the set. And I guess the actor was leaning on his paper and he couldn't see the lines. And so they had to cut. And they said, could you not lean on his lines, please? Cover his lines so he can read them. So it was funny. But yeah, we had a lot of fun. And of course, Nick Benedict just died. I just heard that. God, he was a young guy. I couldn't believe he died. Most of the people I worked with are dead now. So, you know, Robert Conrad. I worked with both Conrads. The heavy set guy.
Yeah.
I replaced an actor in it. They called up and asked me to replace him because I guess the guy wasn't very good.
One of the fans just said Hugh Franklin played Charles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it was Hugh Franklin.
Yeah.